Hello and Happy New Year! Welcome to Crafting with Sasha. I've got a fun tutorial for you tonight. I have made a whole bunch of samples, so make sure you stay tuned to the very end. Got loads to share with you and show you. I have had a lot of fun with these cards and with card making this time around. I saw this idea on Pinterest. It kind of popped up in a search when I was kind of feeling a bit low in that inspiration ages ago, maybe almost 2 years ago now. And I saw this card and I thought, oh, I love how that looks. I love the design of it. If I can remember and find it, I'll try and link it down below for you. But this card has been stuck in my head for ages, and I thought I want to have a go. I want to try out this cool pattern. So I thought I would give it a go tonight, and I had a lot of fun with it. So one of my things was that I wanted to use up scraps. I wanted to use up paper or cardstock that had been sitting around my office for a long time and make the most of it. So this is kind of my box of offcuts. This is a box of stuff that I bought from the company that used to, I think, make card bases and things. And they used to sell off their cardstock bundles when they're in business. They have since changed business or ceased, something along those lines. But I have got a lot of these kind of random offcut scrap bits where they're not quite a card base. They're slightly different shaped or slightly long or skinny or whatever the case may be. I've just got this big box here and I thought this is what I want to do with these. So I've got this paper pad that I've picked up from a shop which I'll link down below, and I've put on the screen for you now. And what you want to do is grab a paper pad that you love the designs of on both sides, because you're going to be able to see both sides of them. So as you can see, half this paper pad is specialty, so the front is kind of got some glitters or embossing, something like that, so it's only one-sided. You want to grab the pieces that are double-sided. So as you can see here, I've picked these two out as sort of my focal ones, my main ones for today. Now, an option is you can grab some embossing folders. If you've got some embossing folders you haven't used in ages, they've been lying around, grab those. Make sure they're the ones that have lots of pattern on them, because the strip that we're going to emboss is quite small. So you want to have something that's got lots of intricate patterns. Alternatively, grab some dies, some edge dies. I've got these in my stash. I've had these for years. I saw someone make a mini album with them and I had to have them. I've never used them. So I dug these out. I've also got these edge dies, which are from Sam Colcutt, and they're from Craft Stash. And I've got these dies that I haven't used yet, and I thought I want to have a go with these and see if I can make some cards with those on the edges. Alternatively, if you haven't got dies, you could grab your scissors. So these are scissors that I've got in my kids' stash. You can buy them from Hobbycraft, you can buy them from Fiskars. Most shops sell kind of decorative edge scissors. These will work really well as well on your project, just to kind of give a bit more character and dimension to your project. Or if you've got an edge punch, I've got this one, which is an old one from Stampin' Up. EK Success, which is on Amazon, and loads of other shops make all the punches for Stampin' Up, and so you can find lots of edge punches with them as well. Now I'm going to share with you my process of how I go about measuring to make these cards. So I'm not going to give you exact measurements because it's going to be pointless, because your card base might be different. So the first thing I do is I start by measuring my bit of scrap card. And if it's an uneven number, I like to work in inches when I do things like this, just because it makes it simpler. I will cut my cardstock down to the nearest inch or half inch to make it easier to measure. So in this case, I'm going to cut that side down to 4.5, just so that it's a nice round number. So when I come to cut my designer paper, it all just makes more sense to me. And when I go to add my little flap, as you can see here, I can then do it at an inch or an inch and a half or 2 inches, and I know I'll have a nice even base. So because I've done it the way I've done it, it means that my 6-inch piece of paper, because this is 6 by 6 inches, will fit in my card really, really nicely. So I've gone ahead and scored at an inch on the edge of my cardstock, and I'm going to take the scrap bit that I cut off, and I'm going to use that on the inside of my card to give a nice finished look. So I'm just cutting this down to an inch again as well to match the front of my card. So as you can see here, I'm going to wedge that front panel in between these two panels and create a card front out of that designer paper. Now I want to add some interest to that front little panel piece, and I'm going to emboss it with these dots. If I can find the items I've used today, I will link them down below for you. I think I picked this up on AliExpress. And what I'm doing here is I'm lining it up with the edge of those dots along the edge of my creased bit of card, rather than the edge of the embossing folder, so that I can get the dots right up to the edge where I embossed it. Now I did accidentally emboss it on the wrong side, so I'm just flipping it over to the other side. I'm going to apply glue onto that front panel, and then I'm going to place the back panel where I want it to go on the other side and put a glue onto that side. Now you can use tape runner or any kind of double-sided tape, whatever works for you. I'm using liquid glue because it gives me a bit of wiggle time. As you can see here, it kind of shifted when I closed it. So now I've got it wedged in between those two panels, and I've got this really fun piece of paper in the front to add decoration to. I've gone ahead and I've cut my panel for the inside for my writing to be just the same size as the front panel, but as you can see there, I just trimmed it down just a little bit so that it could account for the closure bit, and that it wouldn't be too close to them. So I'm adding some removable adhesive. This you can take or leave. You can see in a minute, I'll do another sample where I don't use this. But if you find your cardstock slips around, or you're a bit fiddly like I am sometimes and you just can't get something to stay in place, you can add some removable adhesive, and that will help hold it for you while you go and close your panel. And what I like to do is close the back onto the front, and then that way I've got my cardstock hidden nice and beautifully right behind that decorative paper, so you can't tell that it's there, but you got your nice place for your message. And then you can just go ahead and rub that removable adhesive right off and just wipe it off onto your trousers like I do. I always end up being like, what are these little balls of snot? I remember it's my removable adhesive that I rubbed off. Anyways, I've got this twine here. I picked it up from AliExpress. I'll try and link it down below for you if I can find it. I love this. It's been going for ages, this ball of twine, and it's brilliant. It cost me something like £1 for this massive wad of twine. So I'm just going to tie a little knot on the edge there. I do trim down that little knot in the end, so you see my photos, you'll see it's trimmed down. I've got these dies from Craft Stash. Now, I also invested in the Infinity dies by Hero Arts. Now I wanted to share this with you because if you look at the size difference, there are 24 dies in the Craft Stash die set, and there are 18 dies in the Infinity dies, and they are much bigger from the Craft Stash ones, so it pays to have a look around and see what's available. I can tell you now from having both of them, there's no difference between the two except the size and the price point, and the Craft Stash ones are much cheaper and they do ship worldwide, so that is a bonus. So I have got several of their shapes, and you'll see me use the rectangles in a minute, but I can't recommend them enough. And they have just brought out a whole range that have the embossed detail on them as well. So really exciting about that. Now what I like to do is I take my die and I kind of run it over top of my stamp set and work out which stamps are going to fit in that die shape the best. I've gone ahead and I've used my embossing buddy to prep my area that I'm going to stamp so I don't get any excess embossing powder sticking where I don't want it to stick. And I'm using my VersaFine VersaMark ink pad to ink up my stamps. And you get see my head a bit there. I'm trying to see the VersaMark that I've just stamped down because it's see-through, it's hard to see. And I'm going to go ahead and use my Alina Crafts embossing powder. I love her embossing powder. I use it probably every other day on my projects. It's really nice. It's ultra fine. It works brilliantly. I'll link all these things down below. I'll link the embossing tray. I get a lot of questions about my embossing tray. It collects my embossing powder and I tip it back in. I can't do the paper trick. Everyone I know does the paper trick where you funnel it back into your jar. I just pour it all over my desk every time where it sticks to the paper and I have a nightmare. So this little embossing tray is my best friend when it comes to embossing. And they're really inexpensive to buy, and I've used it for years. So that is my friend when I emboss. I can't live without it. Now I'm coming in and I'm heat setting my embossing powder so that it melts and gives you this beautiful kind of semi-metallic shine. I got a little mark there on the side where my tweezers were because I didn't realize the embossing powder had stuck to my tweezers. So I'm coming in with an eraser And it's got sort of a sand eraser on one end and a normal on the other. You can pick them up at any stationery shop. Almost any shop that sells pencils and pens should have them. It's really great to have in your craft office because you can just erase those marks off your paper. It kind of just takes the very top surface of your paper off and helps to get rid of any marks. Now I've got this twine. I'll try and find it on AliExpress again. This is where I picked it up. I have used this twine so much and I absolutely love it. It's really, really inexpensive to use as well. And they do ship quite quickly from what I remember when I bought it from them before. It's a different kind of shop on AliExpress. AliExpress works the same way as sort of Amazon does. It kind of has loads of different shops and different sellers, and you purchase through AliExpress, but it buys from that store itself. So loads of the shops that I linked down below there from AliExpress come from all kinds of different shops. Alina is on AliExpress, but that's just where her store is, but she is very good. And I purchased from her a lot. I really love her products. They're really good, and she does unique designs as well. So I'm marking where my ribbon is, roughly, just so I know where to put my foam tape, because I don't want to put the foam tape where the ribbon is, because then it'll be really bumpy and standing up off my card too much. This is my giant roll of foam tape. I have used probably a quarter of this already. It was bigger than the size of my head, almost double the size of my head when I got it. I got it from Arteza. It is Arteza's double-sided foam tape. Now, on their packaging, I haven't tested this all out, but on their packaging it states you can use it inside or outside, and it holds up on all kinds of different surfaces, and you can remove it fairly easily, I think was what the packaging said. You can check it out on their website. I'll try and link it down below for you. But this is what I'm working my way through at the moment, and it's brilliant because it's not really thick foam tape. So I can make it pop off my card, but it's not going to add extra postage and make it too thick to go through the post. So I'm really happy with this postage tape. Postage tape? Foam tape. I've got these stone drops from Nuvo, and I picked them up from Craft Stash, and when they dry, they look like stone. It's quite cool. So it doesn't have a shiny, it doesn't have a matte, it just looks like a rock on your paper. So it's quite cool. So I've been having fun with these stone effect drops. I think I got them in the gold and the white. But I'm just kind of plunking some circles around here and just adding a bit more dimension to my card. And that finishes off my card. So if you have a look, I've zoomed in a close-up of these stone drops. They're quite cool. I'll link them down below for you. I got them in the gold color. And I love how the finished card looks. I love all the character to it. I love all the texture on it. It's really good fun. Right, so next up, I've got these longer strips, longer and skinnier strips. So I decided to do the same kind of design with this card and use up some of these strips because I had about 50 of them. So again, I'm going to start out the same way. I'm going to take my ruler. I'm going to work out what the closest inch is to that size that this cardstock already is, so that I can then go ahead and have something even to work with. So I'm going to cut it down to 6 by 3 and just take off those little edge bits and save all your edge bits, because those edge bits are the ones that you could use on the inside to kind of make it look pretty. They're the ones that you could use on another card. I've got a jar of strips I keep on my desk for sentiments and things. So keep all those little strips. They'll come in handy again. Again, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in my crease. This time I decided to go with 1.5 inches, I believe. And you'll see me trim it down and cut it to how I want it to be. But I thought because I've got my punches and my dies and everything, I wanted to have lots of room to work with. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you, if you have only scissors, if you only have an edge punch, if you only have edge dies, I'm going to share with you each of those cards and what they look like when you finish them. So with the scissors, all I'm going to do is just trim off the edge. And when I trim it off, I realized that actually I don't like it. It's still too chunky. And you can just come in and take a bit more off with your scissors. So it's really nice. These are really easy to line up and really easy to work with. So if you don't have an edge die, these edge scissors are really inexpensive to pick up. Get some at Hobbycraft. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them on sale quite often as well. So it's really nice. If you've got your edge punch, just stick it in your edge punch right in the middle. And these are really easy to work with. You just slide to the left, line up the pattern on the bottom, punch it, slide it to the other side, line up the pattern, and punch it again. And then you get this nice even border all the way across. These are really easy to pick up as well, but they are more expensive because they are quite heavy, and they just, I think, just tend to be more costly to produce. So that's how that kind of edge looks on there. I do go ahead and trim off a bit more because I feel like, oh, that's too chunky. Sometimes these edge punches can take quite a lot off your cardstock. Other times you're left with not a heck of a lot. So I decided to leave myself lots of wiggle room here. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing again. All my paper trimmers and things that I use I'll try and link down below. I can't link this punch, unfortunately, because it is a retired Stampin' Up! Punch. So I can't help you there. I'll try and do my best to find this die set, but I did buy it about 5 years ago. I'm going to go ahead and use this edge punch here, or this edge die. And to get that center point right in the center, I'm using my Tim Holtz central ruler. It's really great. It has a 0 right in the center, so you can line it up in the middle really easily and see exactly where you're going with it. Really handy ruler to have. And then I just run it through my die cut machine, and I get this beautiful edge with that little bit of embossing detail in it. And so again, I just take my paper and make sure it looks nice, and I'm happy with how it's going to look. And then I can move on to adding some more details to it. So I get out another embossing folder here, and I decide to emboss 2 of the edges, the ones that didn't have the extra little detail on it from the die. I decided to add some embossing details to. So here's my result. I've got my little embossed panels there with my 2 edges, and then I've got my other edge already nice and detailed from that die. So when you're going to stick these down, be mindful that you've got that edge that isn't going to be covered. So all I'm doing here is adding some adhesive to the edge of my paper, and then adding adhesive to the edge of my cardstock, but I'm avoiding those very top and bottom edges, if that makes sense. So I'm going to line up my paper underneath. I'm going to make sure that I'm really happy with the top and bottom and right hand side to make sure that they're all even. And then I'm going to go ahead and stick the front panel to that panel. Now I've got those scraps left over. Remember I said don't chuck them. Those are the scraps that I cut off to make my edge nice and even. I'm going to go ahead and stick that inside. I feel like that just kind of covers up that one edge just nicely. Kind of gives it a bit more of a clean look. I don't do it on every card, but on these little ones I felt like it just kind of added a little bit more to kind of help blend that paper or cardstock into my base. So now I've got that all done. I'm loving how it looks. I'm just going to give it a nice kind of burnish with my bone folder just to make sure it's stuck on. And now I've gone ahead and finished it off screen. So I added some twine to the back of my panel. I used my rectangular dies to finish off these fronts. And then I also stamped thank you using my thank you stamp set from Craft Stash. I'll link that again for you. It's from Crafter's Companion actually, but I purchased through Craft Stash. Then we're going to move on to design number 2. With design number 2, I added a lot more of the twine behind my thank you to give it a more character. And then I used some metallic thread that I picked up from AliExpress to add a little bow on the front. And I stuck that down with some mixed media glue. Onto my third design, I left it a bit more basic and a bit more plain. So I did an extra bit of twine, but I didn't add anything else onto the top. I left it just as is because I thought it was perfect that way. Right, moving on to these edge dies. These edge dies cut the whole entire edge. So they don't do just an edge, they cut like that rectangular shape as well. So I've gone ahead and done my same normal thing where I cut my cardstock down to a sensible number. I've measured my die here. It's about 2 inches wide. So I'm going to add my score line at about 1.5 inches to allow for my design to go on, but not to be cut off, if that makes sense. So I'm going to slide my die in. I'm going to line it up on my edge exactly where I want it to go. And then I'm going to take some of my low tack tape and stick it down exactly where I wanted it to be positioned. So I'm going as close to that edge as possible. You can see the cutting edge of that die is underneath my cardstock. Now I originally went to grab my Big Shot platform and realized, it's a little bit wide. But thankfully I have bought the Big Shot Plus lately. The Big Shot Plus was about 20 or 30 pounds more than the normal one, so it actually was not as expensive as I thought it was going to be. I purchased it, I think, from the Works, and I used my points to get it even cheaper. And it has been a lifesaver. It means I can do these dies really easily. It's an A4 die cutting machine, so it's perfect. Craft Stash does sell it, but they are sold out at the moment. But what I did was I ran it through my die cutting machine, but I made sure not to put my plates over that line so that I didn't get a crease from my plates pushing down on the edge that I wasn't cutting, if that makes sense. Now this will fit a 6 by 6 inch piece of paper, so that works out quite nice, but I decided I actually wanted to change it up and I wanted to go with this Marble Dreams, which I picked up at the Works for £3. And I thought I would rather use this paper pad. I like the pastel kind of colors. I felt like it went well with that kind of cardstock that I had a scrap of. And I decided to go with the swans. I thought the swans looked really gorgeous, and I thought that would be a really fun focal front of my card. So that's what I'm going to use. Again, I'm going to do the exact same thing and cut it down so that it fits nicely on the front of my card. So I've got a nice border all the way around. And then again, I'm going to add adhesive only to the parts that are going to actually touch my designer paper. I'm going to avoid those two edges. I don't want to get glue on the inside of my card. So I do press it down, open it up, wipe off that glue if there is any that's spilled out, and then I can carry on. Now here's where I'm going to go ahead and glue that panel on, but I'm not going to use my double-sided adhesive to keep it still. I figured I was capable enough this time around to do it. And all I do is just close the back panel over the front panel, and then I get my panel nice and hidden by the front. I hope I'm making sense. I feel like I'm kind of blurring all my words together. I hope you're not getting too confused, that my video is helping you to understand what we're doing. With this die set for these edge dies, it comes with the fun topper bit. So it actually comes with 4 sizes of flowers. So on this one I'm using just 2 sizes. On another one that I'll show you a sample of at the end, I used 3. So this is how I finished it off. I got more of that metallic thread out. I got the pink thread and I kind of bundled it up behind my thank you, used my foam tape and popped that up, used Alina's embossing powder from her shop to do my thank you stamping with it. And now I've got some samples to share with you of extra cards that I made that I did off screen. So I went ahead and cut 2 more card bases. I finished one and the next one I'm already working on. I used Alina's thank you die with the shadow outline for the top card, and I used some of my Nouveau drops and the 3 flowers from that set. I love how this turned out. I love the natural border on it. I decided to make a couple boy cards as well. I used the gift box set, and I stamped that on the top with some of Alina's green embossing powder and die cut out some of those gold little gift boxes. So I had a load of fun. I hope you had fun crafting with me on New Year's. I hope you're not feeling too lonely at home. We are in lockdown again in the UK, quite a harsher lockdown, and I think we're going to be going into even a more harsh lockdown soon. So wherever you are in the world, I hope you're staying in and staying safe, and I hope you've had fun crafting with me tonight. I appreciate you hanging out with me. I look forward to seeing you again next week, and I hope you have a lovely and happy new year. And let's hope for the best for 2021. Take care. Bye.